accusers. But Bill Cosby situation also fell into a Me Too movement and just so many other elements to this thing for it to be successfully pulled off with a conviction. So unlike the other two things, the evidence had to vindicate them. With Bill Cosby, no evidence, no, the accusers. I mean, let's just be honest. They lied. They don't. Nobody wants to say that, but when you've been consistently inconsistent, what is that?
Right. I can't believe, not to cut you off, but I want to bring this point up. I couldn't believe the judge allowed Janice Dickinson's line to testify. She looked like she came out of Breaking Bad. I couldn't believe that. And she admitted on the witness stand in cross-examination that she lied. She had a history of falsifying information. So how is her testimony even credible?
Right.
And legally speaking, I can tell you as an attorney, what they did with this, and I know this is your interview, but I just want to break down just the legal part of it. There is something in the Code of Evidence. Every state has it, and here in Louisiana, we have it. I believe it's 412, Article 412 of the Civil Code of Evidence. It's basically prior bad act witnesses. You can call prior bad act witnesses in order to show their modus operandi of the defendant. So knowledge, intent, planning, so forth, things like that nature. However, Bill Cosby was not on trial for rape. He was on trial for indecent, basically touching someone inappropriately.
So none of their testimony, all of it was inadmissible.
All of it was prejudicial, and it was prejudicial, it was speculative, and it should never have been admitted legally.
Right.
And what this Judge O'Neill did, my understanding that a previous accuser, and you probably know them more than me, that testified in the first trial in 2017, she was Gloria, and they said she did bad during the
horrible. Yeah, she also had credibility. They all have credibility issues and serious credibility issues. There's certain things that, there's advocacy groups that want to explain that sometimes you'll get foggy on the details, which is true. Sometimes, because of trauma, you don't report rape, which is true. All those things are true, but they don't apply to these accusers. None of those things, and you don't flub certain details the way that they did, changing, years by decades, and the inconsistencies. The thing that was most, shocking with Andrea Constant is that she went back and changed her details to match her phone records. If there's no other evidence of lying, I don't know what there is.
Police didn't even find her credible.
Right.
And that was another thing if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Cosby, Bill Cosby allowed the cops into his home to search to find anything, and they could not find any of the things that back up her story.
No.
And not to mention also, there was a statute of limitation defense that Tom Mesereau had where, because she kept changing her testimony, if this happened in the winter of 2013, like because she couldn't give a date, and then they could show also when she gave Bill Cosby Valentine's Day gifts, got tickets to his concerts. Yeah, I don't know a rape victim or sexual assault victim that goes back to their accuser multiple times in calls.
Well, they have an excuse for everything. Advocacy groups are coming up with nonsense, and they have some kind of psychological excuse now for everything. And so this is like, evidence and facts are out the window in this climate. It's just because of emotional reasoning, they excuse everything. And that's extremely dangerous, especially for Black males who deal with false accusation on a regular basis. Just look at what's been happening with some of the athletes, so we're in a very dangerous time where, like, on one end, I want to empathize with any real victims who are out there. And yes, there is certain problems with, rape in our communities, but what's happening right now, the climate is being is becoming extremely dangerous, where people are being more emotional and not logical. And
Right.
you know,
Well, right. Well, what I say is, as an attorney, I believe in the presumption of innocence, which is a person is innocent until proven guilty, and they have a right to a fair and impartial trial. See, that part is left out. And I think the reason why Bill Cosby actually has a great chance to appeal it is because of the media influence that was present at the courthouse. There were outbursts made by several witnesses, like Shalana Lanza, who was the convicted prostitute, and also convicted of falsifying a police report when she said, "Do you remember me?"
Shaylin Lasha.
Is it Shalana Lasha?
Yeah, Shaylin Lasha. She was another
Black woman that that's crying all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about her, she said Bill Cosby didn't rape her; he dry humped her leg.
Yeah. And you know, there's one thing when you look at the evidence and the details, and there's other instances where you can actually use your own, your common sense and your instincts. You have someone with her who is a convicted prostitute, and psychologically, that means certain things. That same person that works the night and gets paid to perform sexual tricks in favor is not going to be the same person that's going to whimper and cry because some celebrity humped her leg, didn't even rape her. So 30 years ago. So her performance didn't even match the allegation. And everybody's just kind of like pacified and just, that's what's really got me concerned, is that like everyone should be disturbed by this. And everyone should know just how much of an atrocity this case was, how much, even if you think he's guilty, I don't, but I respect the fact that there's people out there that just do. Even if you're one of those people, you should know this case was just it was horrible. It was unconstitutional, right, and it was rigged, and that should disturb everyone.
Right. D.L. Hughley, the Women on the Talk and The View, Hannibal Buress, he's been quiet ever since this conviction happened. Kenan Thompson, yeah, he does. And matter of fact, there was an article, and I'll send it to you, from the Washington Informer last week, where they called the whole trial unconstitutional. A group of lawyers spoke out and gave their opinion on it.
Davis, yeah, someone passed that around, and
yeah, Nicole did, and she also, Joey Jackson, who was the CNN analyst, he said that the trial should have never happened. He's the legal analyst for CNN. I've said it shouldn't have happened. A lot of people have, but I think what it is that many people are mad at Bill Cosby because of the whole pound cake speech that he gave at the NAACP Awards, and he started criticizing young black men. But when I look at what Dr. Cosby is saying, especially being in the legal system, the things that I have seen, to a large degree, he was correct about the behavior and attitude of a lot of our people. And
I don't accept that as a reason to, like, at what point, I don't think there's much you can do to me to piss me off, to want to fan the flames on
what I think it is, when I get to that, is that they're upset. He, I guess, aired out dirty laundry, and they feel, especially since he's been he's pointing his finger, telling black people to act this way and so forth. You'll have people that say, well, you're being accused of rape, so how can you judge me? Like D.L. Hughley made the joke of something along the lines, well, when he was arguing with Bill Cosby.
I like him a lot less now because of his Bill Cosby comment.
Oh, because of D.L. Hughley? Yeah. Well, that's more personal, because D.L., my understanding is that, and I saw the interview he did with Sway, D.L. Hughley, Bill Cosby basically called up D.L. Hughley's show, and back in the day, Bill Cosby was very critical of young black comedians with their use of the language. Even when Chris Rock did the Black People versus Nigger sketch, his skit for the Bigger Blacker album, Bill Cosby was critical of him for saying that. And
so what?
Martin Lawrence, he was critical of Martin's show because he felt it was stereotypical. Yeah, I agree with you. But I'm just telling you, this is what I think a lot of people look at. And, how can you tell? They, I guess, look at him thinking he's a hypocrite.
Gavin, we can have disagreements. There's people who disagree with me right now about how I run my channel. Like, we can have disagreements, but when you are sabotaging, other black entertainers or other black YouTubers or other, like, you need to understand what code is and what are you doing? Like, what is the transgression against you that he did that's bad enough to justify you fanning the flames on his hanging, his conviction? Nothing. I
agree with you. I agree with you. And I think it's more, I'm just saying it's more personal for them. They don't know, like D.L. Hughley is not a legal analyst. He doesn't know law. The Mooney twins don't know law. And Paul Mooney's sons were, one of his sons were arguing with me because they called Bill Cosby a rapist, saying that he raped one of their friends. And I didn't ask them this, but I'm looking on Twitter and I see Paul defending Bill. So if you know anything about comedy, Paul Mooney was Richard Pryor's, comedy writer and best friend. Yeah. And Richard Pryor idolized Bill Cosby. He was one of his idols. When Richard Pryor started out doing stand-up comedy, he actually mirrored Bill Cosby. And it wasn't until the late 60s when he was at the Aladdin Hotel and he had that nervous breakdown, he said,
Richard Pryor?
Richard Pryor, right. He brought out and said, what the fuck I'm doing here? Now, what's interesting is that one of the women, I told you about this before, Kathy McKee. Mm-hmm. Okay, Kathy McKee was Richard Pryor's girlfriend at one point. Yeah. She was Sammy Davis Jr.'s girlfriend as well, from what she states, but she was Richard's girl at one point too. And I'm thinking this might be the friend that they're talking about, possibly. I don't know that for a fact.
Okay.
I don't know that for a fact.
That makes sense. Because I did know that, but I didn't guess as to who. But that, what you said right there, makes a lot of sense. It might be her. And if it's her,
right. And her sister has actually done a couple of movies with Richard Pryor, Lynette McKee. Yeah. She did with.
She contradicted herself. I think it was her who contradicted herself because in one instance, it might have been her who said about another situation, or maybe someone else said about that era back in that day. Everybody did drugs and everybody slept with everyone, and something along those lines. Just there's something about her that I have to read and check up on. That something that just has me not trustful